Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Welcome to the show, Plant-Centered listener. My name is Ashley, and I get to be your host today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you listening and being supportive of this podcast. Welcome to episode 3 of our 5-part series where we are interviewing athletes and founders of the VeganStrong Plant Built Team. I am very honored today to actually be interviewing a fellow CrossFit athlete, which is really exciting because we talk about a lot of things, which I will get to in just a minute. But not only am I interviewing a fellow CrossFit athlete, but George Matthews, who is on the show today, he is a vegan athlete and he happens to be the captain of the VeganStrong Plant Built CrossFit Team. So he's been so great about relaying information to us who are on the CrossFit team and is such a great leader. So I'm really excited to meet him in person in less than a couple weeks. George is extremely passionate about fitness and the vegan lifestyle, and George is also a helicopter pilot for the United States Coast Guard, which he talks about. And get this, his vegan journey started after a health problem while he was in flight school. And his dream was to always become a pilot in the Coast Guard. And here he was facing this health problem that was going to possibly get him medically disqualified from pursuing his dreams. So George talks all about that. His story is full of setbacks, even some recent ones, which he talks about, but he's still able to compete on the CrossFit team at Mr. America, which is exciting. And through all of these setbacks, he really delivers a positive message about never giving up, which I just really appreciate about George. So today we cover a lot of topics, but we talk about how he discovered CrossFit, what he likes best about competing. The workouts for Mr. America have been announced, so we kind of go through those and talk about which ones we're looking forward to and which ones might be kind of a struggle. We also talk about favorite CrossFit benchmark workouts and movements. And we also talk about whether or not, or George does, whether or not he would recommend someone else trying CrossFit. So we get into that. And of course, he gives us all the deets on his supplementation, his nutrition, his protein, and how he approaches fueling as a vegan athlete and being really successful in the CrossFit space. So I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation and get to know George like I did. And yeah, just get excited as we gear up for Mr. America here in less than a couple of weeks. It's going to be held in Atlantic City, New Jersey, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. So without further ado, let's welcome George to the show. Thank you for being here, and let's dive into my conversation with George. George, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get to talk to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really curious to kind of start with your story and how you got introduced to veganism, because I know that you have some unique things that maybe turned you towards that direction in life, and I'm curious to hear it.
Yeah, so it goes way back, and around 2008, I was in flight school. My full-time job is a helicopter pilot in the Coast Guard, so it was the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life. I spent my whole, younger life trying to get to that point, and then when I got to flight school, I actually had a lot of problems with sinuses, so I was getting sinus infections constantly, pretty much, and with that, I was always taking antibiotics, just felt like garbage, so... And at the time, I wasn't really working out much. I maybe drank too much. I didn't sleep well. I didn't really prioritize my health at all. But I was at the point where I was about to get medically disqualified from flight training. And I had a surgery, and then I had to get a second surgery. First, they fixed my septum, and then they went in and did some other stuff. And neither of the surgeries really worked. So it was kind of the end of the road. And I finally had a doctor who was like, well, have you tried cutting out dairy? And I had never heard of that. It didn't make any sense to me, but I was willing to try anything at that point because I wanted to become a pilot and I didn't want to get, stopped from doing that because of my sinus problem. So I cut out dairy and almost immediately felt better. It was kind of incredible how quickly I recovered from that. And really since then I've maybe had to take antibiotics maybe once since then, and since 2008. And my sinus problems were basically gone. So I got very curious after that initial just switch, and I thought maybe, hey, let's try to get rid of red meat and see how I feel. So I felt a little bit better after that. And then after I finished flight school, I went to Puerto Rico and I was eating chicken and fish, and then eventually just stopped eating all that and went fully vegan. And it was really when I learned about the ethical and the environmental and the other parts of veganism that I really got into it and have been vegan now for 10, 11 years, 12 years, something like that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. What's wild
Yeah.
too is that this is something that you were looking forward to doing. It sounded like your entire life, like you wanted to be a pilot, you wanted to go through flight school, which from what I understand is not easy to get through. Is that right?
It wasn't for me. I'm sure some people would say it was easy, but no, I challenge. It was a huge challenge for me. In the midst of trying to get medically disqualified, I also came very close to failing out. I got to the point where I had to get a board where they talked about my performance and all that stuff. And then I was basically at the point of if I failed another flight or another event, I was going to be going home. So I went through about probably a year and a half of having my back against the ropes with that. So I barely made it, but survived
Wow.
and still doing it now. So
Yes. And it's wild that something, I don't want to say as something that really you weren't really taught a lot about growing up with your sinus issues, that this was something that almost got you medically disqualified from, again, holding you up from pursuing your dream.
mm. Yeah, I didn't really expect that. And, never in a million years would I have thought that that was the thing that would have stopped me. I mean, granted, even in full 100% health, I was so close to failing out anyway, but that certainly didn't help. But yeah, that was almost the thing that ended it. And there's so many medical tests and little things that they do where you can get disqualified from all these things. And people actually get medically disqualified for a lot of different stuff going into it. So I was extremely fortunate that we kind of figured it out and were able to get through that.
Yeah, yeah. So then your doctor recommends giving up dairy, you give it a try, and it sounds like from then on you're like, wow, there's actually something to this because it made an impact on your health.
Yeah, a huge impact. And that's where people ask me that a lot. They're like, did you notice anything different? And really, I went vegan over, a period of probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, something like that. So, but immediately after cutting out dairy, it was night and day. I felt totally different. And because I had some type of an allergy from that. So I felt way, way better after that. And then incrementally, each step I took to remove things from my diet, I felt better and better. And now I think it's a huge, reason that I'm able to perform and still do this job many years later.
Yeah. Still perform in the helicopter and also in the gym, which I cannot wait to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But for those of us who aren't familiar, maybe with like what a pilot does, like with what you do. I mean, I've watched your videos and I follow you on social media, so I have a sense. But can you explain kind of like maybe what a day-to-day job looks like for you?
Sure. I fly the MH-65. It's the little orange helicopter that the Coast Guard uses, and our primary mission is search and rescue. So when there's people out there in distress, if their boat's sinking or they're lost at sea or something like that, we'll get a call and we'll go out and try and find and rescue those people. That's our primary mission. We also do law enforcement. I did some counter narcotics missions for a few years, all kind of different, homeland security, a lot of different things. And so, for example, like today, actually, as soon as this call is done, I have to go to duty. So I'll be there for 24 hours. I'll spend the night at the air station and really just sit around. We'll do a training flight, and then in between that, just sit around and wait for a call to happen where I'll usually work out or do whatever else I do, my desk work, my other parts of my job that I'll get ahead on. And then I have about one of those duties usually about 4 or 5 times a month. And so and then I do about 2 or 3 training flights a week. So a lot of flying. It's a lot of fun. I love it. It's really enjoyable. It's really rewarding. Sometimes it's really scary, but for the most part, I really enjoy it.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's a mixture of excitement, fun, and then also some really scary aspects as well. And even with your videos on social media, I'm like, it looks a little terrifying for, those of us who are on ground.
I guess. I mean, I guess you get used to it. You start to normalize the high risk flying that we do, and I try and pretend it's not scary and ignore whatever risks there might be. But it's definitely out there. It's a dangerous business.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So then how did you end up getting involved with CrossFit specifically? Or was there something before then? I mean, obviously you had to be in some sort of physical shape to go through flight school and everything, but how did you end up getting into the CrossFit world?
That's a interesting question because so growing up I played sports. I played ice hockey. I played soccer. I did a lot of different sports. And then when I got through the academy and went to flight school, I did some running, did some other stuff just to stay in shape. And then when I got to Puerto Rico, for my first tour, I got really into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that was kind of my sport of choice for a while. And I was training that, I was competing in that, and really enjoying it. And then right around the same time, I went vegan when I was in Puerto Rico. And right around the same time as that, I broke my finger. So kind of a freak accident Jiu-Jitsu where I got caught in someone's gi and it like snapped over pretty much 90 degrees. And because I'm a pilot and I need to be able to use my hands, they had to do like an emergency surgery to kind of put pins in it and make sure that it was working. So I realized at that time maybe Brazilian Jiu Jitsu wasn't the best for my career. So, I was showing up at work with bruises and cuts all over my face and now a broken finger. So it wasn't ideal. So at that point, I, like I said, I just became vegan. And a lot of people, of course, were like, oh, well, you're going to lose all your muscle. You're just going to be scrawny and weak and all this kind of stuff. So at that time, I was like, well, I'll show them and I'll be a vegan bodybuilder. So funny enough, I know you had Danny on your podcast, and
Yes.
I got kind of started following them, Danny, Giacomo, Robert. It was Robert's first book where I saw Giacomo on there, and I started following Plant Built, which really makes it kind of full circle. I followed Plant Built. I was really into it. And I was like, I want to do what these people are doing. I want to show people that instead of just telling them like, you're not going to lose muscle, everything's going to be okay. I wanted to build my physique and actually show them how to do it. So I got really into that. I started bodybuilding, working out, and then I did that for a couple of years. I realized I didn't like being hungry and cranky all the time, so we stopped doing that. And I was just looking for something else to do. So I started powerlifting a little bit, and then I was doing some other stuff. Kind of realized I wasn't in great shape. I was kind of strong. I could lift, a decent amount in the gym, and then found CrossFit really when I moved to California as a way of making friends. Like I just wanted to find some other fit people to hang out with. So I went into a gym and fell in love with it. It reminded me of the training from jiu-jitsu where it's like very high heart rate, hard training. And then there's also all the different aspects of the powerlifting that I was into, the different bodybuilding stuff. So it's really a great mix of everything and reminded me of all the different sports I did growing up. So I loved it. And I love the challenge of it of, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like you learn gymnastics, and then if you think you're sort of good at gymnastics, and there's Olympic weightlifting and the strength, the cardio, like there's always something else you can be working on or improving on. And I just fell in love with that aspect of it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's so true. There is always something more that you can be doing, which is cool because you're constantly challenging and kind of competing against yourself as you go. Because it's like, oh, I can still do this one more thing. And then once you achieve that, it's like, well, now I'm on to the next thing, which is always exciting. And for those of you listening, kind of like what George said, CrossFit is a great way to make friends. I mean, I've had such great friends come from the CrossFit community. It is truly, and this is speaking from my personal experience and George kind of too, like it's a very welcoming community, and it can be a great way to just make some fun friends and get a really good workout in.
I went through a little bit of a rough time like early in my career and lost some friends to a helicopter crash. There was a lot of other stuff going on in my life, and I realized like working out was very good for me mentally, and I fell in love with it. And like the harder I was working out, the better it seemed to be. So that's another reason why I love CrossFit so much still to this day. Is it just no matter how stressful a day is or what's happening in my life, I think the challenge of going and doing CrossFit and really, pouring your heart into it is just phenomenal for that mentally and physically.
Yeah, yeah, I could not agree more with that. So it's been, I know you've been part of CrossFit for several years at this point, and you've been to
Mm.
Mr. America before, right?
Yes. Yep.
So when you were there last year, is there anything that you're looking forward to again this year, or anything that maybe you can tell the listener, just things that like really lit you up while you were there?
It's it's fun. It's hard to explain. It's just, I'm sure you understand this, like walking around as a vegan athlete in a like you go to a regular CrossFit gym and you almost have to explain yourself to everybody, like, why are you vegan? Why are you doing that? How does it work with being vegan? Can you eat this? Can you eat that? And like it's great, but like it's also really nice to just be with people that get it and like all these people that you have so much in common. Like you and I, we just met a couple seconds ago, but I already know we have a lot in common because we eat the same way. We're into CrossFit. We have some of the same values with the ethical veganism and all that kind of stuff. So it just is phenomenal. Like when you get together with these people and you feel like you've known them your whole life. And I think that's the best part for me is like meeting other like-minded people and phenomenal athletes. I mean, there's some of these people that are just the best in the world at their sport, and being able to talk to them and be around them is just like nothing else. And then the other part of it that's neat too is just people will ask the questions. They'll see, when we go and do CrossFit and we're doing great in all these workouts, and they'll be like, who are all you people out there? What's with this eating plant stuff? And it just gives us a chance to tell our story and hopefully inspire other people. And like I said, it was full circle for me because Plant Built was one of my original inspirations that like got me into bodybuilding, and I saw what plant-based athletes could do. So I'm intimately familiar with how that works and haven't been on the other side of it.
Yeah. Oh, that is so exciting. So, is this your second year or have you been there even more than that?
This is my second year. So the time before last year, I went and competed. I wasn't part of Plant Built, but my wife was. So my wife, Natalie, she's a bikini competitor, and she did Plant Built for back when it was in Austin. And so she went and
Oh,
competed, and this is when I was still doing bodybuilding. So we actually competed together, and she was part of Plant Built, and I was kind of like a Plant Built enthusiast. So I was there while I competed as a bodybuilder, and then after that, when they kind of took a couple of years off because of all the different stuff that was going on in the world, and then when they came back, Giacomo asked me about being part of it, and I was like, well, I don't really do bodybuilding anymore, but I'll see if I can get a CrossFit team together. And I actually talked to CrossFit RDT, which is like the local gym there, and some other people, and was like trying to petition to get someone to have CrossFits that would be able to compete. And luckily they did last year, and it was awesome. And then they're doing it again this year. They've been kind enough to do it again. So yeah, this is my second time as a CrossFitter, sort of third time if you count being a groupie and a bodybuilder.
yeah. George, I feel like I've been a groupie for a while and I kept messaging
Yeah,
Giacomo. I was like, if you ever need a CrossFit athlete, like I'm here. So I
big
understand.
time. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Happy you're able to make it this year. It's going to be so much fun.
I know. I am so excited. I just feel like we have just so many incredible athletes coming, and the CrossFit athletes are obviously near and dear to my heart. And I'm really excited to meet everybody. So I cannot wait.
Yeah,
And it'll be different too, George, because it's partner. Because last year it was individual, right?
right. It was last year's individual, and which was fun. But I'm super excited. I love partner workouts, and I love working in a team with other people. Like I grew up playing team sports and did all that. So I'm even more excited, I think, this year for the format of it. And the workouts too, they released them and they look great. Like I'm very excited about all of them. And I think, yeah, together we're gonna have so much fun just doing it as a team and then part of the bigger team. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was actually a question I wanted to ask you was now that we know all of the workouts for the CrossFit competition, is there one in particular that you're like, oh, I am ready to get after this one?
I I'm really excited for the burpee one. You and I talked a little bit before, but I recently I'm on week 5 right now, but I broke 2 ribs. Actually training, I was doing a bench press, and in South Florida, it gets real hot down here, and I was very sweaty, and my hands were very sweaty, and my hands actually slipped out on a bench press, and the bar came down and broke my ribs. So I was really doing great. It was like the strongest, best shape I'd ever been in, and then that happened. It set me back a little bit. I mean, I was doing the day after I was doing elliptical and doing some stuff, so I tried to not miss any days and hurt a little bit, but so to answer your original question, I was really excited about the burpee workout, like super excited because I love doing burpees, but it doesn't feel great still just slamming my chest into the
Yes.
ground. So slightly less excited for that one. And then the clean and jerk one too, that's going to be tricky just because I haven't been lifting super, super heavy since I got hurt, and I haven't got up the courage to wear a belt yet because it kind of pushes on everything. So that one will be interesting, but all the other ones, the burpee ones still should be super fun. Like I love that. The toes to bar, the double unders is one of my favorites. Rowing, biking. So I'm really excited about that one. I think that's going to be great. And then Cody is a phenomenal athlete, my partner. So he's very, very fit, and he's going to be all up in my business, making sure I can keep up with him. So it's
Yep.
going to be a real challenge with him. So looking forward to
Yes.
that.
Yep. That is one great thing about having a partner is they are not going to cut you any slack. So,
No,
yeah.
he's going to have to handle. He's a little bit stronger than I am, so uh, he'll have to handle some of those heavier weights for the clean and jerk. So I'll just sit there and cheer him on. It'll be fun.
Yeah, because the women's weight goes up to 195 and the men's goes up to like three something.
It's 3 something. It's up there. Like
It's
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 heavy,
heavy.
heavyweight,
Yeah. Yeah. I was
and it's
pretty
quick too.
surprised
It's
by
only
that.
a 12-minute cap or something like that. So you got to be
Yes.
moving.
Yes. And so for those of you who are listening in this workout in particular that we're talking about, we're basically doing a clean and jerk ladder in a way where it starts at a light weight and we have to do a certain number of reps and the weight continues to get heavier and then the reps go down and we have 12 minutes to complete at the end, basically as many reps as possible if we get that far. I'm going to practice to see how far I get, George, because I'm like, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. So we'll see.
Oh, you're gonna do great.
Yeah.
It'll be fun regardless. So.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I do have some just CrossFit questions because, like I said, I don't have a lot of CrossFit athletes on the show. So I'm kind of excited to get your take on one, really like what you like best about competing. Because I know that you do it every once in a while and you've been at Mr. America before and you're coming back. So you have to like it a little bit. But is there something in particular that you really enjoy about the competition atmosphere?
I I really like competing. I think that I don't consider myself like a very competitive person. Like I did competitive sports like growing up and doing all that, and like generally in the gym, like on a day-to-day basis, like I'm not really trying to compete with everyone. I'm trying to do the best that I can and get tired and sweaty because I love it. But every once in a while, when you go and compete, I think that it really pushes you to another level of your training, and you dig a little bit deeper inside of yourself to, accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish and do the workouts to the best of your ability. So that's what I love the most, and especially too, I think going back to the team thing, competing with someone else is such an amazing experience because you're in there suffering together and you're really there's some nerves and you're going through it with somebody else, and it's like this bonding experience like nothing else where you just push each other and can do things that you never would have thought possible. I mean, people around yelling and cheering you on, and then you're with your partner. It's just such an incredible experience, and I find it so motivational, and it kind of keeps me going in between those competitions. Like, for months with this, I'll be in the middle of a workout and it hurts and it's painful, and I'll just be thinking like, oh, it's X amount of weeks until plant built. Like, I need to push through this. I need to keep
Yes.
going. I need to dig deeper and be able to do that. So without that little competition part, I think it's harder to go to those dark places that you need to push yourself to.
Yep, yep, I agree. And for you listening, if you are a CrossFit athlete and you've been thinking about doing a competition, no matter where you're at in your CrossFit journey, I'm sure George would agree. I highly recommend it. There, like George is saying, that there's just nothing like, especially if you're able to do it with a partner or a group of people, there is nothing like it. It is just, it's incredible. The energy is so contagious and it's just such a good experience. And after you're done, more than likely, you're going to want to do another one.
Yeah, so true. It's very true.
Yeah. So, George, do you have a favorite benchmark workout or maybe just a favorite movement besides burpees that you really enjoy?
I like burpees. I love deadlifting and handstand push-ups. So that's was it Diane? That's the quick sprint with
Yes.
deadlift and handstand push-up. That's one of my favorites. I also like Helen for some reason. I don't know why, because it's terrible. It's like the 400-meter run. Was it 21 pull-up and then some kettlebell swing? I forget exactly how it goes, but
Something like that. Yep.
yeah, that's a fun one. I I don't enjoy Fran, so that's too much. I get like strangely nervous for Fran, which is 21, 15, 9, pull up and thruster at 95. I just get very nervous for it because I think that's the most painful workout possible. And it's over in a few minutes, but it's just,
Yes.
I, it's like, it hurts. It just hurts so bad. I'll hurt for days after that. So I
Yep.
get very nervous for it. And then it's just so hard. But those are the good workouts, though, right? Those are the best kind.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. They are. I know for some reason I feel like Fran is very different than Diane, even though time-wise they're both really, really short. I think Diane is way better. So I agree.
Same. Yeah, I leave Diane and I like still feel good. Like I can give some high fives and like walk off. I finish Fran and I'm like, I don't know where I am for a few minutes. Like I gotta
Yep.
just sit there and recover and like hope I survive the next couple minutes after that. So very different
Agreed.
stimulus.
Yes, agreed. Is there, in your CrossFit history, do you have something that you're really proud of, like whether it's some sort of achievement or competition or just anything in particular that you're just like, wow, I'm really proud of this over the past several years?
I do. A lot of it is places that I've really struggled and like fallen short and like had a hard time with. Like there was especially the open, I think is a great opportunity. Go back to competing too, like doing the open too, these benchmark workouts. Like there was one open workout, I think 2019, that had muscle ups in it, and I could do muscle ups, but there was like a heavy volume and a lot of other stuff, and I totally like fell apart in the workout, like completely unraveled. Like couldn't do muscle ups. I was failing one after another. I got like really upset, and like mentally it just wasn't great either. Like I started just missing reps, and then that workout just was awful. And then a year or two later, there was like another muscle up workout, and I was excited because I was like, this is kind of my chance at redemption to like come back and do it better this time around. And I did. Like the muscle ups were, I cruised through them no problem, and I felt better. And mentally as well, like I just knew what I could handle and how to stay composed and like do that thing that I've been training for. So like that was a huge one, like being able to do that. And then there's another one with like wall walks. I remember the first, there's actually a funny video of it on the doing the wall walks. Like no one knew how to do wall walks. They just invented this thing one day. No one had trained for it. I'd never done a wall walk. So we were doing it, and again I was kind of falling apart. At one point I fell and landed on the clock, and like my ankle got all swollen, and like I got all messed up. And then same thing, like either a year or 2 years later, like wall walks came back, and it was just like you can put the video side by side and it's like a totally different thing, like just being able to sail through those and do that. And I think that's cool. Like that's what's so great about CrossFit, I think, is there's all those opportunities where, you know, things that you never thought you'd be able to do, you come back and do them. Like all these different skills, like handstand walking, muscle ups, and all of those things. And although like from day to day, it's hard to see the progress. Like every once in a while, you get a little glimpse of it, like in the open or in a competition, or when you hit a new lift, or even when you go back and you're like, oh, I did this workout before, and you look at your score and you beat it by like 5 minutes, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that that was a thing. Like I was just doing my best today, and it's so much better than was a few years back. So yeah, plenty of those opportunities. And then I think the other thing is just the we talked about before, like the mental stuff of being able to push yourself to a different level and stay composed and like grind through those workouts, because that's a huge component of CrossFit, I think, is the mental stuff. I mean, you see the top athletes at the highest level. I think what makes them top athletes at the highest level a lot of times is their mental toughness of like how they can go. I mean, they're doing it in front of millions of fans and doing it, and their whole life depends on it, and they can go through and push themselves to a level that I don't think most of us can really appreciate.
Yeah. Yep. It is. Yeah. I could not agree more. I think all those components are so important. And I'm curious because there are a lot of people who CrossFit can feel a little intimidating. I know when I first joined a gym, I was like, oh, wow, I'm seeing girls in the corner doing handstand push-ups. I'm like, what? I just thought, wow, this is mind blowing. And so what advice would you give for someone who is maybe considering doing CrossFit, or they've heard about it, or they maybe just want to connect with a really incredible community, or want to lift some weights, throw around some weights? Is there any advice you would give to someone who's maybe considering doing something like CrossFit?
I'd say, I mean, first, the easy answer is just go for it, because it is, I think it is extremely intimidating too. Like I was intimidated. I was also worried about getting hurt because I heard about getting hurt, and I kind of trained like an idiot up to that point and had done a lot of things that could have gotten hurt in other sports and other parts. And so I was worried about that. But I think when you go and just try it out, like they have a lot of gyms have like a bring a friend day. That was how the first workout I ever did was actually I had a friend that brought me to a bring a friend day. And I think those are great opportunities. Get someone else with you to like sign up with you, like just go and do it and do your on ramp together, which is like your intro to CrossFit kind of thing where they'll teach you the movements, something like that. And then I think once you go and you do a class or you do a couple of things, every CrossFit gym I've been to ever has been like so incredibly supportive. I mean, you take the top athlete in the gym and they'll be working out next to you, and it's hurting them. It's also hurting you, and they're going to be cheering you on as you're finishing your workout, even though you might be scaling and doing a totally different workout. You might be doing different movements. You might be doing different weights, but everyone just supports each other. And I think that's why CrossFit has become so popular, is that supportive aspect of everybody in there in the gym working together for kind of a shared goal. And it just is so incredibly encouraging. And I think the other thing too is have like a beginner's mindset of it's so important of just going in there and being like, for me, I'd been an athlete my whole life. I was still intimidated because it's like Olympic lifting. I'd cleaned in a little bit when I was in like high school football, like just had no idea what I was doing. And then same with like handstand walk, all those things. And just have that beginner's mindset and be like, I'm not going to be great at this, but it gives me something to work towards, and it's okay that I'm not good at it. And a lot of those things, like handstand walk's a perfect example of this, because people ask like, how do you get a handstand walk? Like, how do you do it? And it's like, there's some technical stuff you can do about like how you point your hands, or like keeping your glutes tight, or squeezing your legs, or whatever it is. And like, that's great. But really the answer is you have to fall hundreds of times. Like you just have to commit to like I'm going to fall over all over this gym for like, it took me a year of just constantly crashing into the rig, crashing into whatever it was. And like, that's what it takes. Like, you just have to do that. You have to put in those hours of like failing at it over and over again. And same with the Olympic lift, same with muscle ups, same with all those things. Like, the only way you're going to get any of them is if you're vulnerable and you allow yourself to fail at them and you just become okay with failing at it. And I think that I'm going to go on a tangent here, but I think that's why this is so important for like life skills too. It's the same thing. Like, these skills apply to life, like having a beginner's mindset and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and being okay with failing. And it helps you out in life when you're like, oh, well, I learned how to handstand walk, and it took me a couple times, a couple bumps and bruises of falling and doing that. And you develop that skill and that resilience that I think will carry over into every part of your life, which is, again, why you should go and try this and find a CrossFit gym and do it, or really any gym for that matter. I mean, I can't say enough good things about going and doing fitness with other people.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And you said it so beautifully. So I'm not even going to repeat anything because I thought everything you said was just beautiful. And I agree. It took me a couple years to get handstand walking down. But like once you, like you said, you almost have to be okay with failing, because once you just practice over and over and over again, being able to achieve something that you've worked so hard on for so long is so exciting. So couldn't agree more. I do have to ask, of course, because I think a lot of people are curious. Well, you're vegan and you're a CrossFit athlete, and not just a CrossFit athlete, but you really excel in the CrossFit space. What does your supplementation or nutrition look like, kind of generically?
Well, first of all, I'm spoiled. My wife is she's a chef, and she makes all my food and my macros. So I track pretty much everything 5 days a week. On the weekends, I'll not worry too much about it. Like, I'll go out for a couple meals, but it's generally like intuitively I'll eat. Like, I won't get crazy or anything. And I have just over a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So like 160, 170, because people always ask how much protein. And I have no problem reaching that amount of protein. And then I eat just under 3,000 calories, most of it being whole foods. And that's really it. Like, I keep it pretty simple. Eat probably about 5 meals a day. Supplementation is pretty minimal. I take some magnesium before I go to bed. I take creatine, and I hardly ever supplement with actually like protein powders or anything, just because like it'll be in food every once in a while. Like, my wife will make me overnight oats, for example, or something like that, and there'll be like a scoop of protein in there. And she'll also make like different protein muffins or whatever, and there'll be like a scoop in there. But I will never have like a in water like put a scoop of protein in there. That's not going to happen. So that's really it. And I eat a lot, um, constantly eating, I feel like, but
Yep.
pretty basic.
Yes. Well, that's actually refreshing to hear about the protein shakes. I think there's a misconception that we have to be consuming protein shakes throughout the day in order to eat our or achieve our protein goals. And that really isn't the case. You don't have to do that by any means if you're vegan or whole food plant-based or whatever you choose to follow.
Right.
Yeah. So what is, speaking of protein, George, I'm sorry, I have to ask you this, of course, too. What is your common response when people ask you, whether it's at the expo at Mr. America or just maybe at your CrossFit gym, well, where do you get your protein?
I do get that question a lot. And soy, which then there's a whole other discussion about that, of course, but tempeh, seitan, beans, pretty much everything. And then I'll tell them like most things like have a little bit of protein. So if you're eating enough calories, like you'll just get it without even trying. And then depending too, like if it's somebody, I don't know, I'll ask them about their protein and be like, well, how much protein do you think you get in a day? And like kind of dial into like what they're actually asking. Like, what are they trying to figure out? And a lot of times people don't even know. They'll be like, they just assume I don't get protein. And I'll be like, well, how much protein do you get? And they have no idea. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about like your food, your meals. And like, you're only getting 100 grams of protein a day. Like, I'm getting almost double that on a vegan diet. So it is, it is a conversation I have a lot. And I think that something I would tell people too in this, like when you are going vegan, is like at least have a baseline education about this stuff. Like, do some research, figure it all out, because people are going to ask you about that a lot. And it's a lot easier when you know, like, okay, this is how much protein I'm supposed to get. This is what some of the research says. This is, why it's important. This is how I get it, all that kind of stuff. And just make sure you have all your bases covered, because, I mean, one, for your health, and then two, because people are going to ask. So that is it's an important question.
Yep. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. So, George, how are you feeling? We're less than 2 weeks out from Mr. America. How are you feeling right now about everything?
I feel great. I'm a little bit nervous after it's been an interesting time leading up to this. I honestly I wasn't sure I was even going to be able to do it when I got hurt, but right now I feel incredible. My workouts have been really good. I actually felt pretty beat up lately because I really been trying to like increase that volume and train like extra hard. And then soon I've been telling myself once I get through this week of really hard training, I'm gonna like do a big taper and kind of relax. That's where I went very wrong last year, I think, is because I like to train, and so I went like a little too hard into it, and then by the time I got there, I was like already kind of tired and beat up. So
Yeah.
it is very important to like take a little rest and like dial back a little bit. So I'm feeling great.
Cool.
I do need to taper. That's good, and that's the hardest part for me. Is it's not the training, it's not the going hard. It's the like, hey, maybe take it easy in the gym and like
Yeah.
scale some of these workouts back a little bit. And so that's the last little piece I've got to dial in.
Yep. Well, I plan on doing the same, so I'll hold you to
Yeah,
it.
good. And I
Well, good.
haven't tested the workout. Have you tested anything yet?
I haven't. I told my training partner, I sent her all the workouts, and I was like, "Will you
Yeah.
do these with me the next couple days? We're going to plan on doing them this weekend." And she's more than willing, so I'm excited to try them. Have you tested them yet?
No, I was planning on doing the same thing. I've tested kind of parts and like pieces of them here and there, but I was thinking maybe this weekend I'll do some testing as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on the same page.
Yep. Yep. Good idea. Yeah, I'm excited to see how they go. So we will see and stay tuned because obviously
Yeah.
we will share all of this on social media as well while we're at the Mr. America event. George, I'm curious, how can people support you, especially while you're at Mr. America, and connect with you on social media?
I do a little bit of social media. I'm on Instagram. It's at my name, George Ritchie Matthews. I go on Facebook maybe once every 6 months, if that. That's really it. I'm not in a whole lot of places. My wife's kind of everywhere, so if she's she's carrying the team on the social media front, but she's Natalie Matthews, so she's all over the place there. But yeah, between the two of us, that's really it.
Yep.
Not out
Yeah.
there all that much.
Yeah. No, that's great. And Natalie has a great Instagram. So we'll put George and we'll put Natalie's
Oh,
Instagram
thank
in
you.
the show
Yeah.
note. Yep. So you can especially, cheer George on as we go into the Mr. America event in a couple weeks and all those great things. George, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to
Oh, thank you.
hear, yeah, your story and just learn more about kind of your perspective with CrossFit and everything that you've been doing the past few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to work out with you.
I know, I'm so excited. I can't wait to meet you in a couple weeks. It's going to be so much fun.
Gonna be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will catch you on the next episode. Until next time, keep thriving.